So it's that time of year again, time for us to indulge our desire for diabetes while we dress up in blackface, shouting satanic prayers at 10-year-olds dressed like princesses. Some might think this is a little extreme, but it's Halloween, damn it. Let's not forget the true spirit of the holiday. We have to ward off evil spirits, and what better way to do that than with racist costumes? No, I'm just joking. But in all seriousness, let's talk about cultural appropriation and Halloween. I know a lot of other people have already covered this topic, and not just this year. Some YouTubers have even been making these arguments for years now, but the arguments still rage on, so I figured I would share my thoughts on the topic. In a previous video, I talked about my issue with the concept of cultural appropriation, so I'll try not to just repeat all those same points, however, some of them bear repeating. The main reason for this debate this year is due to Moana costumes. People have claimed that any white person who wears such a costume is culturally appropriating. My response is twofold. First, it's not actually cultural appropriation, and second, even if it was, so what? So first off, the entire goddamn holiday is a giant example made up of several little examples of cultures borrowing from one another. Halloween is basically a pagan holiday. This is why super uptight Christians like Pat Robertson are so against Halloween, because it's very non-Christian. However, Americans, which are almost exclusively non-pagan, have turned the holiday into a celebration of consumerism. This is true for basically all American holidays as well. Even Christmas is just a big celebration of capitalism, and took many of the modern traditions from other religions, namely paganism. This mixing of cultures is something that I think should be celebrated. The ability to distinguish between better and worse traditions is crucial to societal progress. For example, ritual human sacrifice was a practice that would be wise to avoid if we want a flourishing society because it's harmful and leads to no benefits, while gift giving is, at the very least, neutral and perhaps maybe even beneficial since it creates friendship and things like that. In terms of Halloween, we've abandoned the pointless task of burning crops and animals and have instead made it about getting as much candy as possible. Or if you're an adult, it's usually about getting as drunk as you can while dressing as slutty as possible. And I mean slutty in the best way possible. This isn't unique to holidays either. Religions and languages have the same cultural bleeding. The monotheistic religions like Islam and Christianity are adaptations of Judaism, and the polytheistic religions share many similarities with one another as well. And language too has the same sort of borrowing. In a sense, without cultural appropriation, you don't have language, you don't have religion, you don't have holidays, or at least you wouldn't have any of the modern forms of these things. In my previous video about cultural appropriation, the argument I was addressing wasn't that white people can't make sushi or tacos or wear Native American attire, but that if they do it in a way that is beneficial to them, they should give back. But in terms of a Halloween costume, how is this even an issue? Are the children supposed to donate some of their candy? Or must they simply acknowledge the origins of the costumes? If so, then why not for all costumes? Do I have to acknowledge my appropriation of pagan culture? If I want to wear a Goku costume, do I have to give candy to Asian kids? Shouldn't it also be offensive to go as a ninja for Halloween then? Or what about vampires? Do I have to give back to Romanian children? The answer to all these questions is of course no. And that is for a very simple reason. When I buy a costume, I don't owe anyone anything. If I buy a Pikachu costume, I'm not stealing from anyone. I'm not taking anything away from Asian culture. I have in fact paid for the costume, so I own it, and I have the right to wear it. That's how capitalism works. And the money will go to pay for the materials and the labor and the licensing of the copyright. And for costumes with no copyright, then nothing is stopping anyone from making those costumes if they so choose. Similarly, if I have the money to buy the materials and I make a costume myself, I still haven't stolen anything. If I were to make a bunch of Pikachu costumes to sell them, then I would be violating someone's copyright and therefore would be stealing from someone. However, if I simply make the costume for myself, then I have not made any monetary gain from the intellectual property, and so the costume is only as beneficial as the material and the labor I put in to making it look like a Pikachu, which again is not stealing anything because I bought the material in a fair exchange and the labor was my own. This is, of course, just another reason why cultural appropriation is nonsense anyway, because the aspects of culture that are often claimed to be ripped off are things that someone made and sold. If I buy a Native American headdress, then it's my headdress and I have the right to wear it. If someone wants to exploit that and make headdresses and sell them, then they're free to do so. As long as no one already owns the copyright, then you can make whatever you want. As long as there's a market for it, then anyone can make that product and sell it. We don't have the right to tell others they can't make and sell something they created simply because we don't think they should be the ones that make it. The freedom to choose one's own lot in life is an important part of freedom. We also don't have the right to tell others what they can and can't wear. You have the right to be offended, but you don't have the right to any recourse. Or put another way, you don't have the right to not be offended. And that is because offensiveness is subjective, and so literally everything can be offensive to some people. If we say no ethnic characters for Halloween, some will rightfully see that as leaving out ethnic characters and may find this offensive. The fact is, you can't please everyone, and so we can't make our decisions based on offensiveness. There will always be someone who's offended. If a group of 20 white guys all dress up as white characters, some will cry racism because of the lack of diverse characters. But if some of those characters are non-white, then there will be those who cry cultural appropriation. It's a lose-lose situation, and so the best approach is to not care about the offense of others. Which isn't to say that we shouldn't care about the feelings of others at all. However, we must realize that there's a difference between having empathy for the legitimate struggles and problems people face, like poverty and discrimination, in contrast to the perceived slights, which are no more than emotional reactions that are the result of unintended offense and do not create physical or monetary harm to the person claiming to be wronged. So when someone says that a Moana costume is offensive, the only answer to get us anywhere is to say, so what? What harm does it do anyone to see someone else wearing a Moana costume? Some will say, but it's like you wearing my skin. But the fact is, no, it's not. When I wear a Pikachu costume, it isn't like I'm wearing the skin of an imaginary creature. I don't think anyone thinks of it like that. So why is it different when it's a person? If a little kid, boy or girl, wants to be Moana, it's because they like the character and want to be like that character. The best way to make someone know that you're imitating a character is to look like that character. The children aren't suddenly going to think, oh boy, it's time to put on the skin of this tribal person. No, they think, it's time to put on my Disney princess costume. But if we are to bend to the will of those who are always offended, then why not be consistent? If someone shouldn't be allowed to wear a costume because it makes someone think of wearing someone else's skin, then why not ban smoking because it makes me think of someone sucking on my toes? And no one has the right to suck on my toes. Ignore the fact that no one else sees it this way. Ignore the fact that what I'm offended by isn't actually happening. No one is actually sucking on my toes. And ignore the fact that it's none of my business what other people are putting into their own mouths, and instead, let's ban cigarettes because I'm offended. Of course, the cigarette toe example does not take into account that sometimes costumes have sacred symbols like tribal tattoos. But this doesn't really change anything. I have no obligation to avoid eating beef simply because it might offend Hindus, who think cows are sacred. So why should I care what anyone thinks is sacred? If I'm being consistent, then I should care as much about one culture's sacred items as any other culture's, which is why, for the sake of consistency, I just don't care. I won't force anyone to eat cow as long as no one tries to stop me from eating it, and I won't force anyone to make headdresses, and no one has the right to force or prevent me from buying and wearing one. I mean, I'm not gonna buy one, but you don't have the right to stop me from doing it. Just imagine what the Halloween section would look like if we caved to the demands of those who are offended by cultural appropriation. Would we have to have costumes segregated by race, with the white costumes over here and the ethnic ones over there? Obviously, we already separate costumes for gender, but this is because most people take gender into account when deciding what to be for Halloween, and in terms of marketing, it's more profitable to do so. This doesn't prevent anyone from buying any costume they want, but the difference is clear. These characters are boys, and these characters are girls. And there'll be clear differences. Some of the girls' costumes will come with skirts, and the boys probably won't, and girls' costumes might have glitter and things like that. There will be physical differences that might affect how comfortable the costume is as well. But with race, why would we need to separate them like this? Clearly, there are a lot of white people that like wearing costumes of non-white characters, which is why this whole Moana costume thing is even an issue to begin with, and I'm sure the reverse is true as well. And such differences like what we see with gender won't exist with race. The Moana outfit will be different from all other outfits, but nothing about the design or cut will make it more or less comfortable for white people to wear. There is one more thing to be said about cultural appropriation in Halloween costumes, which is, as many have pointed out, that this leads to less ethnic characters. If everyone thinks it's racist for white people to wear Moana costumes, then less people will buy them, and ultimately this will make the character less profitable, and therefore will make the character less favorable to movie producers and investors. If, however, we allow children to be children and embrace the characters they like, then the best character will be the most profitable. Interesting characters will win in the free market regardless of race, while non-interesting ones will lose out and be far less profitable. But that's not the only outfit enraging people. There's been a lot of complaints about the Border Patrol outfit. People have been calling it racist. But to me, this claim doesn't really make any sense. Halloween is a time to dress up in scary costumes, and what's more scary to an immigrant than a Border Patrol agent? If I dress up as a zombie, it's not because I want to be dead or eat people. So why would a Border Patrol outfit have such implications? If I dress up as a zombie, it's because I think zombies are cool or because I want to scare people. So if I dress up as a Border Patrol agent, maybe it's because I just think deportation is scary and I want to scare the crap out of some of my friends or something. So this Halloween, I say let your kids wear whatever costume they want. If white boys want to be Moana, let them be Moana, and if black girls want to be Super Mario, let them be Super Mario. And to hell with anyone who has a problem with it. Someone's going to be offended no matter what we do, so we might as well just do what we want as long as we're not harming anyone and enjoy the last few days of vision we have before the diabetes leaves us all blind. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and share this video everywhere, and if you enjoyed my work, you can follow me on social media. Links are in the description. And remember to never stop questioning.